No problem.
3, 2.
Welcome to Wednesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com, the mobile app, and the YouTube channel. We appreciate you for joining us once again. It's presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I'm Paul Dottino. He's Matt Citak. As always, we come to you from the Giants podcast studio presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. You know, I got to tell you, I get so psyched up with our theme and Parcells and Coughlin. I got to tell you, a little electronic stuff going on today, but I just don't have the normal energy without listening to those guys.
That and no chocolate chip cookies?
I did actually have a mini chocolate chip cookie.
There you go. All right, so you got a little bit of energy.
I brought one with me before the show, and I did have the mini chocolate chip before the program started. Yes, indeed. So anyway, folks, we are here for the next hour to talk New York Giants football with you. Our phone number is 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. You can also find us on social media using hashtag GiantsChat. And as always, if you did not catch our program live today, you can catch us on the archive because it can be caught on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcasts. So, Matt, I will confess to all of you out there, I'm an old school guy. I used to love the Pro Bowl because it was a real game back in the day. In fact, it only started to really get watered down around the 2000 season when it really started to become kind of like ookie, for lack of a better term.
What was the term?
I went for ookie.
Ookie?
Yucky?
Yucky, I know.
Okay,
Ookie
yucky.
is just
How about
cookie without the C?
How about just yucky?
Okay.
Okay, we'll settle for yucky. It started to turn that way right around the 2000 season because you could see a significant difference in the amount of physicality that they started to play with, and it got worse and worse over the years until it finally became touch football, and then they just decided to disband the whole thing. But back in the day, you know, and I got to tell you, folks, that was a real game, and it was a lot of fun to watch. It was appointment television for me because it was the weekend after the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And it was the last chance you had to see pro football until the Hall of Fame game. So, yeah, I used to watch. It was a big deal for me. But last night's Pro Bowl games didn't ring the bell. Not for me.
No, me neither. I
Okay.
had little interest in it.
So, for
But
those...
it did look like Brian Burns had a nice time. You spent the last couple of days in San Francisco. You know, we had some social content that went up on our social media platforms the last couple of days, him interacting with all the other Pro Bowlers. He seems to be enjoying himself, so that's good. He is our one representative there. So
He is now an internet star.
yeah, he is.
He was a football star before this. He is now an internet star. I don't think the Carolina Panthers social media department gave him the kind of treatment we did.
No, and I can't imagine they loved it too much seeing all that Burns with CMC content out there.
In any event, the bottom line is Brian Burns was at the Pro Bowl this past week. There's a ton of stuff all over the Giants social media. If you just want to have some fun and appreciate a great player, a great professional, great guy, he certainly enjoyed himself, and he deserved it. Obviously, his third Pro Bowl trip. He's not a newbie, but this was a big deal to him because he wanted to have a career season. He went into this season doing everything he could during the offseason, as he explained to us, wanting to become an even better player than what he was, and he achieved that goal. By all accounts, he achieved the goal.
Yeah, he spoke about it literally from, at the very least, the first day of training camp, if not during the offseason program, saying basically, like, I'm a man on a mission this year. And I would say from an individual basis, at least, mission accomplished.
Yeah, for sure.
As individually, other than, you know, trying to help the team win more games, I don't know what he could have done much more to have a better season.
So first things first, congratulations on a successful Pro Bowl trip to Brian Burns. He comes out of it without an injury, which of course is always...
If anyone were to get injured in that game, I don't even know what to say.
There's always a muscle that could get pulled. Come on.
That's
You know
true.
that.
That is
Non-contact injuries happen in this league all the time. So we are glad to report, and we can report, that Brian Burns was not injured during the Pro Bowl flag football game yesterday. So great news for the Giants on that front. One other thing that we will want to address today, there'll be any leftover stuff about yesterday's reports on Matt Nagy. Apparently, again, reports saying Giants are not confirming anything, that he will be the offensive coordinator of this team. If there's anything left over from that, we certainly invite you to chime in. Matt was not on the program yesterday. If you have a couple of thoughts, this would be the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you and John yesterday went into all the football X's and O's stuff about him and what he brings to the offense. So I don't think I need to rehash any of that because I don't think
you have thoughts though.
No, I do. But look, there were other names that were floating around as potential candidates. Again, we don't even know the actual candidate list, the interview list. We do not know that. Nothing is official, so we don't know who was truly, brought into this process as a possibility. But he is, of all the names that were floated out there, clearly one of, if not the most experienced as an offensive coordinator. He has a long track record doing it, obviously with the Chiefs. He had his 4 years as the head coach with the Bears, which obviously did not go too great. But that first season, he led the Bears to a 12-4 record, and with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback, that is a pretty impressive feat in my book. And they would have won the playoff game and made it to the divisional round if it weren't for the infamous double doink. That was that playoff game. If he makes that kick, they go on to the next round, and who knows what, history could have been different. But
Some football writers gave him Coach of the Year that year.
And he was the AP NFL Coach of the Year. Not that is the end-all be-all, as we have learned the last couple of years. But
Indeed.
They don't just hand that out for nothing. And only had one losing season with the Bears in those 4 years. Granted, 2 of the seasons was 8-8, which you strive to be better than 8-8. But considering the seasons that the Giants have had in the last decade, around 500 record next year, I don't know who anyone would be too opposed by that with that for next year. But I think he could be a boost to Jackson Dart. I think he likes using, shotgun RPOs. And as we saw this past season, while we don't want Jackson Dart doing that every single play, it clearly is a strength of his running out of that sort of system. I think it'll be good for the tight ends on the team, Theo Johnson. I think the running backs are going to potentially be used more as pass catchers, which what we saw Tyrone Tracy and Cam Scadaboo both do out of the backfield as receivers this past year. That's a positive, I think. I think they have room to even grow more as receivers. And just one other thing that you guys probably did not mention on the show yesterday. I saw this because Ian O'Connor of The Athletic quote tweeted this tweet from over 3 years ago. And it was Patrick Mahomes on the New Heights podcast, the Travis Kelce, Jason Kelce podcast.
The cheat that he did.
And he revealed for the first time, this was not public information prior to this, that when Patrick Mahomes went to Kansas City for his top 30 visit, the way that it worked is they would bring guys in for visits, and then, they'd have come in the night before, and then they would spend the whole next day in the facility where Andy Reid and, the staff would just grill them on plays. And especially for a quarterback, you're getting grilled on basically the whole playbook as much as you can, digest and comprehend in a very short period of time. Well, he said on this podcast with the Kelce's that night before, Matt Nagy, who was the offensive coordinator at the time, wanted the Chiefs to draft Mahomes so badly that he gave Mahomes the plays the night before so he could study them. So when he came in the next day, he would impress Andy Reid. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And 3 Super Bowl championships later, the rest is history. So that's just a little bit of slightly, I guess, lesser known story that, he played some role, at least, in Patrick Mahomes landing in Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes credits Matt Nagy for a lot of his development. His last year as offensive coordinator with the Chiefs, the first stint was Mahomes' rookie year, where obviously he sat the whole year except for the last game of the season. But Mahomes has credited him for the development. Mahomes has spoke glowingly about him after this past season ended. He's clearly a big fan. Travis Kelce has said nothing but very positive things about him. Clearly, the locker room in Kansas City were fans of him, of Matt Nagy. They liked him a lot. There was the report that before the season started, he and Andy Reid came to an agreement that his contract was up after the conclusion of this past season, that he would leave one way or the other because he wanted at the very least to be able to call plays, which when you're an offensive coordinator under Andy Reid, you're not calling plays. That's just the way it is. So it's not like, his departure from Kansas City the second time was, a firing of any sort. Everyone from Kansas City said nothing but good things about him. So I think, if these reports are true, I think give him a chance. Let's see what he can do. Because he also, going back 12 years, but he played a very big role in Alex Smith taking the jump from a solid quarterback in Washington in San Francisco, coming to the Chiefs. And that first year with Matt Nagy as the quarterback's coach, Alex Smith was a Pro Bowler. And in the 5 years they spent together in Kansas City, Alex Smith made the only 3 Pro Bowl appearances of his career. Now, of course, Andy Reid plays a big part of that as well.
Yeah. But
the quarterback coach and offensive coordinator deserve some credit in that development and that step that Alex Smith took as well. So, of the names out there, it may not be the quote unquote, sexiest name. Like there were some up and coming guys that landed offensive coordinator jobs around the league. Obviously, Matt Nagy, very experienced guy, is not like that. But I think we gotta, put some trust in our head coach that he knows what he's doing and knows building a staff that he knows is going to come into his image of what he wants this team to be in 2026.
Oh, I would totally agree with that. I mean, if you love the John Harbaugh hire, part of why you love the hire is that you believe in his rationale, his logic, and his decision-making. So you have to automatically give him a certain amount of leeway as to whether or not you agree or disagree with a particular person he hires. You have to give him the benefit of the doubt because you've already asserted that he is a very high-level head coach who knows how to win.
Yeah, and if you just look at the offensive coordinators that he worked with while with the Ravens, I mean, just about all of them were experienced play callers.
Yes.
He didn't really have any, first-time guys that were, the up-and-coming 30-year-old guys getting the first crack at being a play caller. He always chose to go the more experienced route. So, in that sense, maybe we shouldn't have, be too surprised about this move that he brought in, at least this type of play caller for the offense.
And, of course, the connection to Andy Reid, as you mentioned. I mean,
long time.
Both guys have over a decade's worth of friendship and working with Andy Reid, not together, but
Nagy actually got to the Eagles
right after
Harbaugh left. And I actually learned about this because I read about it this morning, that you look at Matt Nagy, obviously he's a long, extensive coaching career. He had a playing career in the Arena Football League.
With the New York Dragons, by the way.
That was his first team. He played with 4 different teams.
Nassau Coliseum.
But when he first joined the Eagles in 2008 as a coaching intern, he was there for that one season while he was a coach in high school, and then he was invited back in 2009 to once again be a coaching intern. And in the late preseason of that 2009 season, I forgot the name, whoever the third-string quarterback of the Eagles was, got hurt. And it was a season-ending injury. And so for I think it was about 1 or 2 days, Matt Nagy was technically the third-string quarterback for the Eagles. They had him he practiced. So if you look at his Wikipedia under his playing career, it says Philadelphia Eagles 2009.
Okay.
But it was literally 1, maybe 2 days of practice because he was still under contract in the AFL, and then B, he was technically a coaching intern with the Eagles. So after a day or two, the NFL was like, no, you can't have a coach that is also a player.
Right.
That's not how this works.
Right.
So that ended his very brief NFL career. But that was just a fun note. He did have at least 1 or 2 practices as an NFL quarterback.
Went to 3 Super Bowls as a member of the Chiefs staff, won 2 rings.
Yeah.
Okay, so the guy does come from a winning background. I will have more to say about Matt Nagy. There was something else I found out after yesterday's show. But I do want to get to the calls because we do have somebody already on hold. Dave in Florida, you're first up, Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Good afternoon, Paul, and good afternoon,
Nice to talk to you.
Hey, Dave.
I was going to say see you, but we can't see you. You can see us,
Listen,
though.
Just a couple of things. First of all, you guys do, I'm an analytical type. I'm an accountant and an analyst, and I think the analysis that you guys do, the team of you and Matt and John, and I don't want to forget Lance, just absolutely outstanding. That's number one thing.
You're very kind.
Thank you.
And number two, as I said to the individual screening the calls, I just wanted to give a shout out to, I think it kind of gets a little lost in the shuffle. I think that Mike Kafka did an absolute outstanding job at the end of the year to keep that team together and win the final two games.
Thumbs up.
I know he landed in Detroit, and he's has a great future.
Yep.
And
big fan.
Finally, I'm going to take it off the air, but I just want to say, I couldn't say it better than you on yesterday's show. We have to be patient, and I'll leave you with the story that my brother was very upset when I'm sure you guys remember, I know Paul remember, that the Giants got clobbered by the Bears in the 85 playoffs. And, of course, the next year they won the Super Bowl. And my brother was on the phone with me upset, and he said, just inconsolable. I said, hang in there. They're going to win the Super Bowl next year, and I was right. So thanks a lot, guys. Great talking to you.
Appreciate it, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Please call again. Thank you so much. It's funny, in reference just to that 85 team, the Bears were special that year. Let's not kid ourselves. The 46 defense, the Super Bowl shuffle, Walter Payton, Jim McMahon, they had a lot going for them. And I don't think anybody was going to derail them. And I kind of I remember going into that playoff, into that postseason, that if the Giants had to face Chicago, it was going to be a tough road. I was hoping that somehow they would get knocked off before the NFC Championship game, so that the Giants would have the opportunity to avoid Chicago, because I thought that was the only team in the NFC that I feared that year, that I thought the Giants would have a very hard time beating. As it turned out, it was a shutout. That was the game when Sean Landeta had the ball, blow away from his foot. Giants had a drop pass on a touchdown. They had a fumble near midfield. They had a missed field goal in that game. To be frank with you, that was not as lopsided as some people might think. The windy conditions were horrific at Soldier Field that day, and the Bears were the Bears, okay? They played mistake-free football. The Giants had several, as I just alluded to, several self-destructive errors in that game, and that's why they lost. Were they the better team? No, but they didn't help themselves with 4 unforced errors that all directly impacted the final score in that game. It was not as much of a one-sided blowout as people might think, and that's why when George Martin and Harry Carson talked after the game in the locker room, and they said they promised each other, we're going to the Super Bowl next year. And of course that's what happened, and they won in '86. Parcells told them the same thing. They were all on the same page. So that just is a little bit of a trip down memory lane from the '85 New York Football Giants. Regarding Matt Nagy, after the show was over yesterday, and I went back to see if I could do some more research on him, within the last year, he was so determined, going back to what you said about trying to get another shot as a head coach, that, he went to a good friend of his and someone who has been involved in a lot of leadership-type business consulting situations, Laura Oakman, who is a long-time announcer for Fox Sports on television. I believe, I don't know if she set the record for the most games on the sidelines. She's also done Westwood One Radio, I believe, on the sidelines as well. She's a long-time, very highly respected NFL media person. But she also has a lot of consulting stuff that she does on the side. And I think she's actually taken that on full-time now. Matt Nagy went to her and said, I want you to do something for me. I got a project. I want you to call it The Blind Spots. And I want you to go back and I want you to interview as many people as you can from my past football career. And I want you to ask each of them to tell you what they loved about what I did, what they thought I was really good at, and what they didn't like about what I did, and what I need to improve on. So she got almost 50 people from his previous football stops to write down these opinions and answer these questions And then she brought the 45-page report. 45 pages of positives and negatives of Matt Nagy from those who worked with him in football before. He was then told, you're going to get this report, and all the people were unnamed. The comments were truthful, they were accurate, they were in full, but all the names were redacted. So he would have absolutely no idea who said what. So there would be no bias, no prejudice, and he also wouldn't be able to say, well, that person said that, I don't believe what they say anyway. He wanted a legitimate account so that he could improve himself as a football coach and hopefully get another head coaching opportunity and use this as a way to succeed. Long story short, she gives him the report. He goes over the report, and many, many things were positive. But two of the biggest negatives that he had, and he claims to have learned from this as he embarks on hopefully another head coaching career. Number one, he bit off too much as a head coach and as an offensive play caller when he was with the Bears. Twice during his time with the Bears, he actually had to give up the offensive play calling and give it to his OC, and then took it back and then gave it up again. I mean, it was a mishmash. Yep. He kept going back and forth. He admitted that he took on too much. He was overwhelmed. It was his first ever head coaching opportunity. It impacted his entire job. And in fact, part of the problem was he was micromanaging people and trying to do both jobs at the same time and could not handle it effectively. I love the fact that he was willing to find this out and then look in the mirror and say, yeah, you know what? That was a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, on a very similar note, at the end of, or a couple of weeks ago, Patrick Mahomes met with the Kansas City media for his, end of season press conference over Zoom, and was asked about Matt Nagy, and he said, I'm paraphrasing here, but he more or less said, I was very impressed that the differences between his first stint with Kansas City, granted they only spent one season together in that first stint, but right. It was Mahomes' rookie year, and it was Nagy's second year as the Chiefs offensive coordinator. Mahomes said the differences between that first stint and then when he returned a couple of years later was such a stark difference. Like, he's like, we all saw that he realized he needed to make changes, and he made those necessary changes in order to succeed in this role. So, and that goes with exactly what you were saying. Like, he is someone that clearly looks at what he's done in the past, things that maybe didn't go so great, did not go as well as he would have hoped, and how he can improve on it in order to be better in the future. I mean, that's what we literally call for all of our players every single year, to do that exact thing. So This is a coach that's going to do it. So for those that are just pointing towards his stint as the play caller with the Bears, being like, oh, it's just going to be like that, I can promise you it's not. He's going to learn from what went wrong there and improve and do whatever he can to be a better play caller. And I would argue that Jackson Dart showed enough in the 11, 12 games that he played for me to say confidently that his ceiling is so significantly higher than Mitch Trubisky's or Justin Fields, which is the quarterbacks that Matt Nagy had when he was with the Bears.
Now, the other item he said that was very huge and very important to him was that when he was with the Bears as the head coach, and of course this won't necessarily come into play in the Giants role as an OC, but he didn't trust himself enough. And so when he hired his staff, he went with all guys who he was ultra comfortable with and did not get enough of balances, checks and balances, different opinions. And so as a result, when he was trying to coach his way through, especially some of the rough spots in Chicago, he didn't have those alternative opinions to work off of because he hired too many guys who were so in conjunction with everything he thought. He said,
yes men, in a way.
I suppose that's a way to put it. So he realized that he should have trusted himself more that he had the confidence, he had the knowledge, and would be willing to entertain other people's ideas. He was afraid to do it. He was so interested in a comfort zone. So, those were the two things he apparently learned from this report. The two big things that he learned from the report that he believes he has changed now in his time over his football career. And we will see how some of this may impact as an OC with the Giants. I will tell you this. The one item there, that last item I just talked about, becomes significant in terms of collaboration. I spoke with Danon Hughes, former New Jersey State high school football star who played for the Kansas City Chiefs and for a lot of years was pre- and post-game analyst and now is their radio game analyst. I spoke to him this morning for 20 minutes. Danon's going to be on another program that I'm doing tonight. And one of the key things that Danon said to me was he became Nagy became very collaborative. He is very, very pliable. He is very easy to work with. He learned this over his time, his 2 stints in Kansas City. And he is very willing, very, very willing to take input from those around him. You know what, folks? That's what maturing's all about. That's what growing is all about. That's what becoming a better coach or a better man in your job or your career is all about. You've got to be able to make adjustments. It sounds like Matt Nagy has made adjustments.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, you don't stick around on Andy Reid's staff for as many years as he did if you weren't, A, just a talented coach, and B, continuing to, desire the to improve both as a person and as a coach. I mean, he, again, was a coach, started as a coaching intern for Andy Reid in Philadelphia. And after 2 seasons of doing that, was hired as a assistant. Or then it was an offensive quality control coach. He was 3 years full-time staff in Philadelphia with Andy Reid. Then Andy Reid brought him to Kansas City for another 5 seasons. Then he got the head coaching job. And then once he left the Bears, that tenure ended, Andy Reid immediately brought him back to Kansas City, and after 1 year made him the offensive coordinator again. Andy Reid would not be carrying this guy with him basically everywhere he goes if he didn't think he was a good coach. And if you don't believe me, you can literally take the words out of Andy Reid's mouth himself, because it was sometime in the last couple of months he literally said that Matt Nagy was the best coaching prospect he's ever had on any of the staffs that he's been a part of. Mm-hmm. And I think we'd all agree that Andy Reid is one of the best coaches of all time. I don't think anyone's going to have an argument against that. So if you, for whatever reason, don't want to trust Coach Harbaugh's decision, how about Andy Reid, who has 3 Super Bowls, a ton of other appearances, playoff appearances, and is going to go down as one of the greatest coaches to ever coach in this sport?
I believe he will. So anyway, just some closing thoughts here on the following day of this news that reportedly Matt Nagy is going to be the OC of the Giants. John did mention on the show yesterday it was his understanding that the Giants will likely not name any of these staff hires official until they get the entire collection complete. Yes. We don't have that confirmed, but that's what John said he had come to the understanding of.
Yes, that seems to be our understanding upstairs as well.
All right, so that's what we've got. There is an NFL.com story which gives a top suggestion for each of the 32 NFL teams for this offseason as to what they might do with their approach and what they might do. We can get into that in just a little bit, but right now we've got some more phone calls.
And we got some YouTube comments we can take after the call.
Absolutely. So let's go to Dave in Michigan first up on the show. Hello.
Hey, Paul. How you doing, man?
What's going on?
Hey, so you were just talking about Nagy and the whole approach that he took. So I was a business journalist, I think you know, for a long time. This is a very classic and often done approach for people who are that companies identify as potential top management. And I'll give you an example. At Ford Motor Company, the guy who really turned it around came in 2006, Alan Mullally. He was a guy who got passed over at Boeing, and he did the same thing. I remember interviewing his consultant, and so that whole process is classic. And I give Nagy a lot of credit because I think you and I are both of the mind that CEO coaches are the most successful coaches.
Yes, sir.
And so this is a very, very classic CEO. So I wanted Davis Webb, but I'm pretty happy with the Nagy pick. And anyway, I have a question for you. It seems to me, and I'm not going to talk about specific players and all of that, but it seems to me in this draft, there is a lot of, after you get past Mendoza, there's a lot of close parity in terms of player ratings from 2 to 12. And I don't know if you guys agree with that, but but here's my question. If you agree that there's a lot of parity, a lot of close ratings, Giants are picking at 5. Do you pick a wide receiver because there's thought that Malik is not going to be available, or even in top form until midseason? Or do you take one of the, if they're there, do you take one of the offensive tackle studs, or do you take maybe a cornerback like the guy from LSU? And that's my only question.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. We'll take the answers to those off the air. Which one do you want to attack first?
I'll take the last one.
Okay.
I actually wrote about basically this exact thing in Cover 3, the article that we put up on Giants.com each week that went up yesterday, in that where the Giants are picking, especially at 5, but also kind of the same at 37, and this has happened a couple of times in the last couple of years as well, it seems like the team needs might line up pretty perfectly with the best player available when the Giants get on the clock. Now, it's February 4th. A lot can and will change in the next 2.5 months. Some prospects that are right now considered top 5 picks might drop 5, 10, 15, 20 picks. Other guys that are currently being projected as mid to late first-round picks could end up being top 5 picks. That's why we go through the combine, visits, pro days, all of the whole pre-draft process before we actually get to the draft, because a lot can and will change. But I think it's a little too early to sort of say the Giants need to go attack position X with the 5th overall pick, because we don't know what's going to happen in free agency.
Right.
I highlighted 4 players I would say as key starters that are pending free agents, and that is Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver. There is offensive tackle Jermaine Illuminor, cornerback Cordell Flott, and then even though he barely played last year, I added Micah McFadden at linebacker.
You left out your guy, Greg Van Roten.
Great. Yeah, well, I meant guys
you love
that
him.
I do, but I meant guys that don't have players on the roster that I don't want to say will for sure fill in, but have I guess a logical next man up that was a recent draft pick. I think we don't know exactly where Marcus Bowe might play, but I think he might get a chance to compete for that starting guard spot.
Yeah, that's the one spot where I believe, depending upon what the new coaching staff thinks about him, do they think about him more as a tackle or a guard? We don't know the answer to that.
We do not know
but
that
if
yet.
they do think that he showed enough to potentially be a starting guard, a starting tackle week 1, then losing Illuminor may not be that big a deal.
Yeah, so you're right. Van Roten obviously is another starter that is a pending free agent, but that's why I added linebacker, Micah, in the linebacker position as a 4th, but it's really those first 3 because those are 3 premier positions.
Yes.
Wide receiver, cornerback, offensive tackle. Now, if the Giants bring 1 or 2 or all 3 of those guys back somehow, which I don't know how financially all 3 would be able to return, but you never know. Depending on which, if any of those guys return, that will obviously change, I think, what the priority might be with the 5th overall pick. If they re-sign Wan'Dale Robinson to a big contract. Could they still add a wide receiver? And should they still add a wide receiver at some point? Yeah, but do you need to use the 5th overall pick in that case? Probably not. If you re-sign Jermaine Illuminor, you obviously aren't going to spend the 5th overall pick on a tackle who won't play at all for who knows how many years, because you have Thomas and Illuminor with your 2 tackle spots. Mm-hmm. And the same goes with if you re-sign Cordell Flott. Then you have Cordell Flott and Paulson Adebo, which I know Adebo coming off not the best season, but he's still under contract. He's going to be here in 2026. He has a track record of success in his previous stint with the Saints. I think maybe some of his struggles last year had to do with coming back from a very serious leg injury. We'll see how he does in 2026. But if any of those guys are brought back, then that position becomes less of a priority for the 5th overall pick. And if you don't bring a guy back at that position, then, yeah, if Wan'Dale's not brought back, and they don't go out and sign some other big top free agent at wide receiver, then yeah, I think wide receiver is firmly in play at 5 or 37, because I will say that this does look like it is a deep and talented wide receiver draft. In his first top 50 prospect rankings from Daniel Jeremiah, out of 50 prospects, 11 were wide receivers.
Yeah, that's true.
Which means, obviously there is a different level of talent between the guys that are in play at 5 and guys that are in play at 37. But nonetheless, we've seen early second-round picks step in day one at wide receiver and be big-time contributors right away. So I get the question, and I know obviously we're in the offseason now and everyone wants to focus on already start looking towards the draft, but there are still some very big questions that need to be answered in terms of free agents, the Giants' own pending free agents, before we can really start, definitively saying like they need to target position X at number 5.
Okay, 3 footnotes to everything that you just said. Number 1, John mentioned it on the show yesterday. If a lot of elements of the Kansas City offense are going to wind up here, and we don't know that, again, we're still working off reports, Wan'Dale Robinson would be a really great fit for what they do. In fact, to be frank with you folks, I've thought for the last 2 months that Wan'Dale Robinson's going to get a very nice economic offer and probably too good to pass up, and the Giants won't be able to afford him. And as I started to think about teams that he would be a good fit for, Kansas City was one of them.
Yeah.
Now, does the reported move of Nagy to the Giants make the Giants potentially chase Robinson a little bit more than they would have because they'd like to keep him? Interesting thought. Don't know.
Yeah.
I don't see them going through the roof to chase him, but maybe he's a little bit more important to them under a new offensive scheme. That's number 1.
Okay.
Footnote number 1. Footnote number 2. Dane Belton is the Giants' third safety. He's also an unrestricted free agent, and the reported new defensive coordinator, Denard Wilson, does like to play big nickel, which is a 3-safety package. How important is Dane Belton, who comes off a career year with 100 tackles? How important and economically friendly, who, by the way, he was also, I believe, tied for 7th in the NFL this year in special teams tackles. How important is it to sign Dane Belton back? He's kind of on the periphery of what you were talking about. I wouldn't say he's a starter per se, but with the newer scheme, he may kind of be a pseudo-starter.
I mean, he definitely was a somewhat big contributor.
Significant rotational player.
This past season especially.
No doubt.
The only thing, real quick, I'll say just about that one thing, and because I saw this tweet about an hour and a half ago, Jordan Reed from ESPN, one of their draft analysts, he said safety is another position that is very deep in this year's draft class. So if Belton were to get a sizable contract offer from another team and were to depart,
I don't know that he will.
I don't know if he will either, but if he were to, it does seem like safety is a position that third safety role is a position that could be attacked in the draft, and it's not going to cost you the 5th or even the 37th pick. That could be, or an early day 3 pick that maybe not from day 1 is your third safety, but slowly works his way up throughout the season.
Yeah. Now, footnote 3, at least for me, if I were to make a guarantee of a normal line of scrimmage positional spot that the Giants will not take at 5. This is where we talk about talent fitting with the potential need if you want to match the equations. I think that Love, the running back out of Notre Dame, is clearly a top 5 player in this draft, but there's no way they're taking him.
I would say he's a talent-wise top 3 player.
Okay, to my point.
Yeah.
He's clearly there. But if for some reason he gets to 5, I still don't think they take him.
I expect him to be there at 5, and I would be pretty surprised if that's the pick.
So in that regard,
I guess never say never.
In that regard, the talent and the need don't exactly jive, because if he's there, they can't take him. The need just says you can't take him.
No, that is, one position. But that's also, it's not a need. You have Tracy and
That's my point.
Scatterbill for sure. And right now, Devin Singletary as well. You have your 3 running backs currently under contract.
Of all your scrimmage players who should go in this top 10 of this draft, the running back there, and obviously the quarterback Mendoza, who's going to go at 1 anyway. Those are the 2 positions that I don't think you even have to consider the need component at all.
No, I agree with you on that. But I think, obviously, everything I said before, wide receiver could be in play at 5. Offensive tackle
all the other spots
could be in play at number 5. And honestly, I would say just about any position on defense.
Yeah.
The only one that I would say as of right now, maybe not, would be edge, because you'd be drafting a guy who, at least for 2026, would be your 4th edge rusher.
What we don't know is, are all 3 of those guys going to be here?
Yes, that's why I said
as
of right now. As of right now,
I think they will.
Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter are all part of the Giants.
I think they will, and I hope they are.
Obviously, I hope so too, but things can change.
It can.
I don't think it would shock anyone. But right now, edge rusher would be the only position on defense with how the roster currently is constructed that I would be surprised at. Any other position on defense wouldn't surprise me. I guess maybe the only other one would maybe be defensive tackle, just because right now there doesn't look like a defensive tackle that would be worthy of the 5th overall pick. But linebacker,
it'd be a stretch.
Cornerback, and I'm going to say safety, but I really just mean Caleb Downs.
Yes.
Those guys all, would all be instant impact players for the Giants defense and help improve the defense so significantly.
All right, Len in Columbia, you're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Well, Len,
good.
how are you?
Len?
Good. Yeah, everything's good. Comment on Dane Belton. He really did come on, especially toward the end of the season. Arguably, I have not been a big fan of Dane, but arguably, he was the best safety on the team at the end of the season.
He found himself
course,
around the ball a lot,
Len.
Back there, that's for sure.
His availability and his play, and you extend that to his special teams work,
which is very good.
Especially on punt returns, is that the up front guy, I guess we call him the fullback on the punt situation.
Yeah,
he was down around the ball all the time.
He sure was.
That's going to be a tough decision for them. I know they got to get another look at Holland. He was a disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, he was injury related and he didn't quite get over that injury from the year before. But I thought when we signed Holland, he was a 64 starters at safety on a Sunday. That he was probably in the top 25% in my mind, and it certainly didn't work out that way. And Newman, hopefully, he can make take a big step forward going into this season. But I would be pleased if they re-signed Belton. I think he'd be a valuable player for them.
I hope he comes in at a reasonable price, Len, because, again, that's another player who I think has value to this team, but I don't think you can chase him if he gets a sweet offer.
No. I agree. Mid-season last year, Harbaugh traded for a player from his brother's team, the Chargers.
Yep, the edge rusher.
Alohi Gilman.
Mm-hmm.
Who was a Notre Dame player, and I would not, Harbaugh traded for him. I would not be surprised if he tries to bring Gilman over from the Ravens. But that'll be interesting to watch. I'm glad Harbaugh's here. I don't have anything against any of the names that have been mentioned for assistant coaches. I'm just not quite over the top on anything. Paul, I think you said it best yesterday. It takes players.
Yeah, it does.
These coaches are all good. The ones that are not there from last year, and the guys we're rumored to be bringing in, and the ones that are floating around the league and signing from one team to another. These are good coaches. But what makes them stand out is the players, and hopefully we can get more out of this roster, even in the first year, than we've gotten in the last 3 or 4 years. But I'm pleased with the names. Maybe it's more a honeymoon period here, this first year. But I think we got, I think we got something cooking here, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun this year. Do you see them? I'll offer this question, and I'll take the answer off the phone. Do you see them adding any of these, newfangled specialty coaches? These coordinator of passing game and coordinators of run game on both sides.
Hard to say.
Do you see them adding anybody like that, or do you think it's going to be more of a traditional nature of the kinds of coaches?
I mean, the
that
titles.
we've seen in the past?
Yeah, the titles get really fancy, and they can get really detailed. The more and more guys you add, the more fancy and detailed the titles become. Right. I don't know how many he's going to do. I mean, heck, I was just when I was talking to Danon Hughes earlier today. I said, Danon, he said to me, what's the holdup with the Giants hiring all these coaches? I said, Danon, he's probably got about 25 guys he wants to hire. I mean, this isn't like when you played ball and there were 8 coaches on an NFL staff. Now there's 25 to 30. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, Len, I would say we don't obviously know for sure because nothing is official yet, but just looking at the Ravens coaching staff from last year, they had a run game coordinator on offense, and they had a pass rush coach on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah. So it would not surprise me at all I'm not even going to speculate of which ones, but it would not surprise me at all if there are a couple of coaches on the staff with, titles like that.
Yeah, I guess that's the modern way to do it, and particularly when you have a CEO type at the top, like Harbaugh. You need these specialty coaches, and it can be 30 coaches as long as everybody understands the role and who they report to and where decision-making authority resides. The number really doesn't make much difference.
Okay, Len,
those 3 questions are answered.
Let's cut to the chase. Which one of these titles do you want to interview for?
Very good question. But here's where I think John might go. Run game coordinator. I could see a guy like Greg Roman, if nothing develops for him over the next week or 10 days. I could see Greg Roman here. I don't like him overall as a offensive coordinator, but I think where he's been, the run game has been pretty good. So that would be the one that I might see him adding. I don't know about a pass rush coach, but he's there are some young coaches that are rumored to be coming over that are going to get signed, and that's good, good. Let me say one more thing.
Real quick, Len, we got to go.
Yeah. Last 10 or 12 years, the Pro Bowl has just really deteriorated.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to say that I know that I did see 2 Pro Bowls in my life. It was way back 1958, 1959. Dad got transferred to California, and I was rewarded with tickets to the Pro Bowl at the old L.A. Coliseum,
Sure.
12 teams.
Sure.
And the first one I saw, Frank Gifford was the most valuable offensive player, and Gene Big Daddy Lipscomb, you remember him, Paul?
Sure I do.
Was the most valuable player on defense. Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, Len.
Go Giants.
Thank you,
It's
Len.
an exciting time to be a Giants fan.
Be well. Good stuff. Good stuff. We need to remind you folks, the Giants Huddle has all kinds of great interviews, podcasts involving not only Giants people, but NFL dignitaries. John does a great job with those. Anything going up today?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay, so just what's been up there the early part of the week is still up there.
Yes,
And
still
that's-
up there. There definitely will be more because John does these interviews. It seems like every day, every other day. So
He's busy.
just keep an eye out there. There will be, I'm sure, some Giants Huddle up today or tomorrow.
All right, and of course he did have his wrap-up, which I believe he might have posted a day and a half ago, which was the wrap-up of the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
And I forget which of was it Jeff Risden? I forget the draft expert who he had on that last Senior Bowl wrap-up.
Let's check real quick. Draft season, it was him and Tony.
Him and Tony Pauline.
Which is
but
normal.
He had, in the huddle, he had, all right, well, you look that up.
Yeah.
I will remind people that
Trevor Sycamore?
Trevor Sycamore, that was the guy.
Yeah.
He's one of our regulars who always helps us out with draft coverage. I do want to remind people that Special Olympics New Jersey's annual Snowball is heading to Rutgers SHI Stadium this year. This annual flag football tournament will be on the field from March 6th through 8th. 6-on-6 tournament features competitive recreational and co-ed divisions, and all proceeds benefit thousands of Special Olympics New Jersey athletes across the Garden State. Register your team today at njsnowbowl.org. That's njsnowbowl.org.
To Len's point, when he brought up the trade, and I got confused, I forgot. To get Gilman, they traded Odafe Owe to
Yes.
the Chargers. That
Yes.
was the edge rusher. I knew there was an edge rusher in the trade. Got it mixed up. He was the one they sent out. And he went on to have a pretty good season with the Chargers.
Yeah, he did okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, when a deal like that happens, they always say the best deals are ones that help both teams.
Yeah.
That's really the best deals, right?
That one did.
Do you think both brothers are sitting around saying, hey, man, hey, bro, thanks, high-fiving each other? We were happy with our guy. You're happy with your guy.
I'd have to think it was probably one of the easier trade negotiations either one of them have had. If you can't get a trade done with your brother, who can you do it with?
I know. Now, what we don't know is, did Eric DaCosta make that trade and just say, hey, John, you want to check off on this? I don't know.
That's true. We do not.
We don't know that part of it. But in any event, good stuff talking about some of these things involving these coaches and some of these dynamics that we're dealing with. The one thing that I'm curious about, to be honest with you, Matt, as we continue to move forward, the one report we have not heard, and there was a report yesterday about a offensive line coach from Michigan who might be coming to the Giants as a apparently assistant offensive line coach, is what I saw.
That is the report that is out there.
Right. I still have not seen any reports from any of the national media indicating who the offensive line coach might be. Now, usually the offensive coordinator has a very big hand in that selection. Who knows how quickly that one's going to happen, but that one for me right now is a real curiosity. So is the quarterback coach, who I don't believe has also been amongst the reports that we've seen.
No, and honestly, I'm happy about that. It might keep us in the dark for a little bit longer, but when this Nagy news was reported yesterday, a lot of people were like, whoa, this kind of came out of nowhere. It was not a name that was being discussed
No, it
as
was
a
not.
possibility.
It was not.
That's a good thing, folks.
Well, most people thought he was going to get a head job.
Yeah, well, he only interviewed, I believe, with the Titans, I think was his only
Right, but he had expressed the
actual
desire
interview.
to get a head coaching job, and then it turned out, I think he
Yeah,
only
but
got
just-
one call.
For sure. My point is just that it was not being talked about. It was not being speculated, the Giants are going to go in this direction. I think that is a good thing. That means, there's less, I don't know if you want to call it info being leaked, whatever it may be.
Okay.
In that sense, I think it was a good thing that it took us all by surprise. And I think on the same note, it's a good thing that we haven't seen names being speculated as who might be the O-line or the wide receiver, or the quarterback coach. It's just news is going to be reported. The Giants have hired Coach X to coach, those two positions. And I think it's better that way. We don't need to sit here and be, discussing all these possibilities, names being floating around.
No,
let Coach Harbaugh, the front office, have these conversations, have these interviews, keep us in the dark, and let us know when it's done.
After all, we don't get consulted anyway during the process.
No, we do
So
not.
it doesn't really help us to have any of those names.
No, but it seems the last couple of years there were sometimes, be information that gets out there to reporters. Seems like at least through the start of this process, we're seeing that a bit less, which I think could be a good thing.
I won't argue with you there. We have one more phone call before we get to the end of the show, and it's also a Matt. This one from East Islip, New York, and you're last on the program today. Hello.
Hi, how are you guys?
Well, how are you?
What's up, Matt?
I'm good. Wanted to piggyback off of what Len said a little bit about the defensive backs.
Yeah.
I agree with him that, like Holland had a down year, Debo, Banks, and Nubin. And to me, I look at it as these guys didn't forget how to play football. They did things in college, in Banks and Nubin, and then their first year, and then they kind of went backwards.
I agree.
Holland in Miami and Debo, they did things, and then they kind of went backwards. So I try to look, what's the common denominator? Is it coaching and scheme? I don't think the players are not smart enough that they can't figure out a different scheme or whatever. So I don't know what's going on. So I want to see what they could be with the new coaching staff. Because I think these guys could turn it around pretty quick. Because something was off there. It didn't make sense to me. 4 guys just all of a sudden play totally different than what they've been doing. Now, maybe there's injuries or whatever, but I don't know. It just seems a little to me like it had to be coaching, in my opinion.
Matt, I always have the opinion that, when you try to evaluate whether it's a unit or a particular position, I'm always of the opinion that you look and you say, okay, how many guys either overachieved or played to their potential? And then you look at how many guys you believe underachieved and did not live up to their billing. And when you have multiple guys at multiple positions that did not live up to their billing, all right, forget about overachieving. If they just didn't even live up to their billing, and you just mentioned 4 guys in the secondary did not live up to their billing. I mean, there were guys on the defensive line that didn't live up. There were even linebackers that didn't live up.
Right.
Now, some of this stuff changed after Charlie Bullen was elevated to interim defensive coordinator. I'll let you put the math along those lines that I just talked about together, and I think you can figure out kind of where you might want to say there was more than a coincidence as to why maybe some of these guys just didn't work out as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all the positions on defense this past season, obviously the defense as a whole was not good throughout the whole season.
No.
But
too many overachievers.
It did improve, the last stretch of the season when Charlie Bullen took over. And I would say the one position that, did show some consistency throughout the year would be the edge rushers, the outside linebackers.
Yes.
And again, reported, but of the coaches reportedly on the staff in 2026, there's only one reportedly being retained from last year's staff.
From the defensive side.
From the defensive side.
Charlie Bullen.
And the reports are it's Charlie Bullen. That's obviously, I don't think, a coincidence.
So I think we've kind of answered your question, if you know what I mean.
Right. And one thing on the draft, Matt, I kind of disagree with you a little bit about the edge rusher thing. You said you wouldn't draft an edge rusher. Okay, here's my thinking. Let's say Reuben Bain is there. I don't see how we pass him by. And here's my reasoning. The guy is 6'3", 270, 275. He plays the run really well, besides getting to the quarterback. I could see him lining up on Dexter's left side. On the right side, you could have Robinson and Harris and Chauncey Golston. Then, you got the linebackers, the Burns and Thibodeau outside them, and then you can move Abdul anywhere. And I think, boy, and then if we are right about our coaching and our our defensive backs can come back nice and strong, boy, that really gives us a great defense. And I'd get a receiver in the second round then.
Well, I'll tell you this, Matt, as you've probably heard me say on this program many times in the last month, I am all for fortifying the defensive line. I do think that is an issue. I'm with you, and I would like to see some additions there. Whether or not it comes in the draft or free agency, I'm open to that discussion. But I happen to want to believe that the secondary can bounce back. I want to believe that I've seen enough previously to think that they can be a quality secondary and that the reinforcements really do have to come along the defensive front. So you and I are thinking along the same lines.
Yeah, I agree as well. And I agree with you. Ruben Bain is a phenomenal talent. He is in my opinion, a top 5 talent in this draft, and he could go on to have a very successful NFL career. My only thinking is, like, if the new coaching staff were to come in and say, you know what, someone like Abdul Carter, we think we can move him around. We don't need to just line him up on the edge. We could line him up all over the defense. If that's the case, then I do think maybe edge rusher would be in play then. But if you're gonna have Brian Burns and Abdul Carter be your primary, outside linebackers, and you also have Kayvon there, that's my only hesitation of how are you going to get all of these guys on the field at once?
Well, to me, Matt, I think you could play him with his hand in the dirt, Bain. And he's big enough, strong enough to be a defensive lineman, like rushing from just the left side of Dexter, and then you could have Burns standing up outside.
Matt, look, if the coaching staff and front office thinks, we could line this guy up on the inside a decent amount, and in addition to having, another down defense lineman, it also gives us insurance for if Kayvon were to leave a year from now when he's set to be a free agent. If they're in that mindset, then for sure I can see it, because then there's a situation where that is a quality talent of player where I do think is worthy of the 5th pick, where a defensive tackle, the other traditional defensive tackles in this draft, probably not worthy of the 5th pick. So
Matt,
in that case, I could see it then.
Matt, as I let you go, I would just give you one other item, food for thought. I kind of think as I project Bain as an NFL player, I'd love to see him as a 4-3 defensive end more than I would a 3-4 guy playing next to Dexter.
Sure.
And I don't know what the new defensive scheme is going to use as a base. If they were going to go to a heavy base 4-3 lineup, that's a different story. I don't think that's going to happen here with the amount of edge rushers they have. I think they're going to stick with a 3-4 base. I think Bain is probably better utilized in terms of his long-term NFL potential as a 4-3 defensive end. That would be my thought and my hesitation to go there. Okay?
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Guys.
Appreciate it.
I do agree with both of you, though, that I do think some defensive linemen, I feel like we've been saying this the last couple of off seasons, but someone to play next to Dexter has got to be a priority this offseason. Whether it's sometime in the draft or a veteran in free agency, I do think Darius Alexander earned some more playing time this year, but he obviously needs to take a step in his development in order to become, an actual every down big contributor. So, adding someone to play next to Dexter for sure should be on the list of things to do this offseason.
Real quick, we have 3 YouTube comments. Jackson Black 7090. I want the safety at 5.
Caleb Downs.
I get it. No one's going to be upset.
Hard to make an argument against it, to be honest.
No one is going to be bummed if they take Downs at 5.
Especially because his ability to also play nickel, he's not just a safety. So
he says he wants a receiver in the 2nd round. I don't think anyone would cry if that happens either.
There will be some good options there at 37.
He says there's definitely a steal available at receiver in the later rounds. All right, 11 Amani says, I think we should talk O-line today. Got to figure out who can potentially be the O-line coach and what we're going to do with the right side, GVR, and Illuminor free agents. Yeah, I get it. Before we go any further there, you're absolutely right. We touched on that earlier. The O-line coach is going to be a big deal here. It's going to be a very big deal before we even get to this point. So you might be a little bit ahead of the cart here, just a tad. And then T-Tom13 says, we are so concerned about Illuminor and Robinson that I don't hear a lot about. Flott, we've mentioned him virtually every time we talk free agency. I don't know, exactly what programs don't mention him, but we always mention Flott, and I'm one of the biggest fans of Cordell Flott since the day he walked out of campus at LSU. So I don't really understand where that's coming from, but you say I'm not the biggest Flott. Oh, we lost John. We lost the rest of his comment, whatever he was saying. Oh, here we go. He goes, I am not the biggest Flott fan, but we are thin there. Well, you should be a big Flott fan. He just had a career season, and he was healthy for most of it and played really, really well when they finally decided to play him in the right spot, out on the boundary. He was never supposed to be a nickel corner, folks. I told you that from the beginning when he came into the league. That was a bad move for him, but the team needed a nickel corner, so they played him there out of necessity, and it didn't work out. No surprise. That's not where his skill set was.
And just on that note, we didn't get to it, but that NFL.com article that you mentioned at the start that we would maybe get into if we had time, the one priority for each team for the Giants.
Yes.
Just tying into that last comment, it says upgrade the corner spot because it talks about Flott entering free agency, and you know, obviously whether or not he returns will play a big role in whether or not they, attack that spot elsewhere in free agency or number 5 in the draft. But yes, especially with Flott as of right now set to hit free agency, cornerback has got to be among the biggest priorities, I would say, along with the right side of the O-line.
That'll do it for this day here on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Don't forget, you can archive of the show is available on podcast platforms everywhere, the Giants mobile app and giants.com/podcasts. We have come to you from the Giants Podcast Studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. Write down the number 201-939-4513. We are here every weekday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time for 1 hour to talk New York Giants football. For Matt Citak, I'm Paul Dottino. We'll see you again next time.